Hello, my name is Colton Koss, and I am a sophomore at UWGB in the Mechanical Engineering program. For the Engineering Club SolidWorks project competition, I decided to do an electric chainsaw. Here's a quick 360 view of my project. In designing this chainsaw, I used reference. I have chainsaws around my house and I use them as reference to figure out about approximately how large I wanted certain components, but I did add quite a few additional features, unique features to my own design. Being that this is an electric chainsaw, it is battery operated, so this unit right here is the battery that would operate this chainsaw. As I have here, it would be a 40-volt battery that would operate this chainsaw. If I pull this battery out of here, you can see underneath there are two springs that would apply pressure back up on the battery, and the battery has a tab that you push in to insert it, and then when you let go it would get forced in here and the battery would stay in place. These teeth fit right in with the battery, and down below here would be where the terminals were to send power to the motor. These are the notches where the terminals would be located on the battery. One of the unique features that I decided to add was a location for the wrench that takes the blade cover off as well as tightens the chain, which is what this screw does right here, and that wrench is located right here. I made it so that there's a slot that it fits into, it slides right into, so it's out of the way, and this rubber piece right here will be screwed down, and so when you push this in, it would feel pressure right here, push it over the top of the rubber, and then it would sit right in here, so it would stay in place while you're moving about and using the chainsaw, but then it was easy to take off and use if you need to take the cover off or tighten your chain. This is a functioning kickback bar that would be used. The purpose of the kickback bar is a safety feature to shut the chainsaw off if the teeth were to catch on a piece of wood and kick back and come towards you. This bar, in order to run, it would be wired in, where in order to run the chainsaw it has to be pulled back. Your hand would be on the handle, and if it kicked back, your hand would slam into this, forcing this forward. It would lock into place, not complete the circuit anymore. The motor would shut off and the chain would immediately stop turning. The chain on this chainsaw is a high-speed chain. In order to design a high-speed chain, all that you need to do is make it so there's an empty link right here. There's a tooth here and a tooth here, opposite directions, but they would not be one right here, so the chain could spin faster and therefore make a quicker cut time, which would benefit having this electric powered chainsaw. You get longer battery life. I designed it so the handle is at a backwards angle. This angle, chainsaws that I've used before have had either vertical or forward angles on the handle, which makes awkward for if you're doing diagonal cuts or horizontal cuts. The angle at which the wrist is naturally at, this makes more sense than your body is away from the chain and not forced toward it, and you can stand behind the chainsaw and it's a more comfortable grip. This also makes it much easier to fill the bar chain oil reservoir, which is right here. This would be the cap that would be used to loosen it, fill it up with oil, and typically I have to use funnels in order to get the oil in there, but doing it like this, there's open space right here without the handle being in the way, so it's easy to fill up. I did not make the motor component or the electrical wiring that would go back to the trigger and then the safety switch here, but it would go right under this housing, and I made sure to include in this, there would be hollow in here, you would see the engine or the motor, but this would be air vents located all over here, which would allow air into the fan that's on the motor and to cool the motor down. I made sure to make a lot of them because using electric chainsaws before, I've had them overheat and they stop running and it's kind of annoying. So having enough airflow to keep the motor cool in it would allow it to have good runtime, being that this is an electric battery powered chainsaw. I'll quick show a cross-sectional view so we can see the inside components. Typically this would be all hollowed out. The motor would be in this, about this location. This is the oil tank reservoir. See if we pull this out. This spring would typically be mated to the bottom of the battery, but in order to pull it out for the beginning of this video, I suppressed that mate so we could see this. All these white dots that we see, those are actually the screws that hold the sides together. It would be two pieces sided together and then the top connector. And coming through right here, there's this little slot here, as well as this. This would be where there's a rubber piece, and that's where the oil would come through to lubricate the chain. This right here would be a slider, and there'd be a screw up here, and they'd be attached so that when you turn the screw that's up here, there's a little pin, you see it comes through right here, that attaches to the chainsaw, and tightening this screw would move this back and forth, and that's how you get your tension of your bar. Making this chain, I originally wanted it to have motion, but every time I tried to, if you see right here, I stopped the chain. Once it got back into underneath the blade cover, it would typically go over the top. This would be attached to the engine, and so it would, when the engine would spin, it would turn and then turn the chain. I wanted to originally make it all the way to there, but doing this chain, my computer, every time I got over a certain amount of pieces or tried to get motion out of it, screen would go black and it would crash. So in order to still have a final project and show it, I just did it for the visual aspect to show that it would look like this with the blade cover on, but obviously the chain would come around, go like this, and then squeeze the trigger, motor would turn, and this would spin all together as a unit. But my computer was unable to handle that amount of program. But yes, this is my final project, and thanks for your time.